$87,000. That's how much cash Nathan Cole wired for what he thought was his dream retirement home. A quiet mountain cabin, miles from the noise of Pittsburgh, where he could finally breathe again. But the moment he pulled up the gravel road and saw the Community Property HOA Access Only sign hammered into his new driveway, his stomach dropped. An unfamiliar black SUV was already parked there, and on the porch stood a woman with a clipboard, a security badge, and a look that could freeze sunlight. "This area's private," she snapped. "You're trespassing on HOA land." Nathan blinked. "Ma'am, I just bought this house." "Got the deed right here?" She scoffed, flipping through her papers like she was swatting a fly. "You bought a property inside our managed zone, which means you follow our rules, or you don't stay." He looked around. No gates, no fences, no mention of any HOA on the listing. But her tone wasn't bluffing. It was ownership, and before he could argue, two men in matching navy jackets rolled up in a patrol-style SUV marked Haven Oaks Association Security. One leaned on the hood, chewing gum. "You'll want to check with the board before moving in. We've had boundary issues." Boundary issues. Right. Nathan had just stepped into something bigger than bad paperwork. Nathan drove back down the mountain that evening, hands shaking on the steering wheel. He wasn't scared. Not yet. But something about the woman's confidence crawled under his skin. Her name, according to the glossy folder she'd flashed, was Pamela Grant, president of the Haven Oaks Homeowners Association. She didn't look like a neighbor. She looked like a CEO who'd built an empire out of fear. That night, Nathan sat in a dim motel room with peeling wallpaper and opened his laptop. He reread the sale contract, every line, hunting for any mention of an HOA. Nothing. He'd bought the cabin directly from a foreclosure listing. Clear title, bank-owned, sold as is. He'd even hired a title search company. They'd found no encumbrances. So why was an HOA claiming control now? A quick search answered it. Pamela Grant's HOA had annexed adjoining properties through protective covenants, sliding them into her control by filing quiet amendments nobody ever challenged. She'd turned half the ridge into her personal fiefdom, buying officials, rewriting maps, and forcing independent owners to join or face endless fines. Nathan rubbed his temples. His late wife, Helen, would have called it immediately. This woman doesn't want power. She wants worship. He'd promised Helen he'd live his dream after she passed, that he'd finally build something of his own. Now his dream home sat behind an HOA queen's invisible wall. The next morning he drove back up to confront her. 3 vehicles already blocked the drive: a contractor truck, a silver Tahoe with HOA decals, and a county inspector's sedan. Pamela stood there in yoga pants and a neon vest, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Cole," she said, voice syrup-sweet. "Good thing you came. You're already in violation of several community codes." "Community codes?" Nathan asked. "I haven't even unpacked." She pointed to a half-rotted fence post near the road. "Improper boundary maintenance. And your roof paint color doesn't meet our standards." Nathan laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The inspector beside her nodded solemnly, jotting notes. Pamela's smile sharpened. "You'll receive a fine notice by mail." "Welcome to Haven Oaks." Nathan felt his pulse rise. He hadn't even stepped inside his own cabin, and already the HOA had drawn blood. As he turned back toward his truck, he caught the inspector whispering to her. Familiar, friendly. That's when he realized this wasn't about rules. This was organized control. Nathan spent the next 3 nights in that damp motel, laptop glowing in the dark. He wasn't the kind of man who ran from a fight. 30 years climbing power poles in sleet and blizzards had hardened him enough. But he also wasn't reckless. So he started digging. The first thing he found was a web of HOA bylaws, updated so many times the county's own records didn't match. Pamela Grant's signature was on every amendment. Each one stretched her authority just a little farther. A new buffer zone here, a community improvement zone there, until her HOA map swallowed miles of mountain property that was never part of the original development. Then came the emails. He'd hired a small-town attorney named Beverly Ford, 60-something, all sharp eyes, and black coffee. After reviewing his deed, she frowned. "Nathan, your ownership's ironclad. But Pamela's playing the delay game. She'll bury you in paper before you can set foot on that porch again." And she was right. Within 48 hours, 3 letters arrived. Cease and desist notice, claiming Nathan's purchase violated community easement agreements. Violation fine. $200 for non-approved roofing color. Warning of lien placement, unless all fines were paid within 10 days. Nathan's jaw tightened. "I haven't even moved in," Beverly sighed. "That's the trick. Once she files a lien, you can't sell, refinance, or repair. It's a choke chain." She leaned back in her chair, papers stacked like mini mountains. "This isn't about money, Mr. Cole. It's about control. Pamela's testing how far she can push before you break." Nathan stared at the fines, not angry, just cold. They were trying to corner him. Fine, he'd play along, until he found their weak spot. That night he drove up the ridge again with his contractor buddy Desmond, an old friend from his union days. The cabin lights were on. Someone was inside. They parked silently behind the pines. Through the window they saw construction crews working, painting, drilling, even expanding the back deck. Desmond whispered, "They're upgrading your property." "She's gonna claim community investment." Nathan's throat went dry. "She's building her case before court." He lifted his phone and started filming. The evidence would speak louder than the HOA's paper trap ever could. 2 days after catching the HOA's crew renovating his cabin, Nathan's phone lit up with an unknown number. "Mr. Cole," a stern voice said. "This is Deputy Hooper with the County Sheriff's Department. We've had reports of harassment at Haven Oaks." "Harassment?" Nathan blinked. "You mean the video of them trespassing on my land?" "Sir," the deputy interrupted, tone flat. "The association president claims you're threatening her contractors. You need to stay off that property until the dispute's resolved." Nathan's knuckles whitened around the phone. "I own that property." "Civil matter," Hooper said quickly. "Courts decide, not us. Best if you keep your distance." Click. The line went dead. That evening he met Beverly in her paper-strewn home office. The air smelled like coffee and printer ink. She skimmed a fresh stack of mail, eyes narrowing. "They've escalated. 3 new fines. Unapproved driveway gravel, unauthorized water use, and," she paused, "community disturbance for posting your video online." Nathan's jaw set. "They're inventing violations faster than I can read them." "Classic intimidation," Beverly said, but they slipped. "These notices came from the county office, not the HOA. That means someone inside government's pulling strings." She looked up. "And I know exactly who. Pamela's brother-in-law is Randall Hooper, the same deputy who called you." Nathan's stomach sank. The sheriff's smile wasn't incompetence. It was family loyalty. The next morning he drove past his cabin again. A bright orange stop work order was nailed to his door. Below it, a new sign. "Property under HOA review. Entry prohibited." He marched to Pamela's SUV parked across the road. She rolled down the window, sunglasses hiding her eyes. "Morning, Mr. Cole," she purred. "You're accumulating quite the record. We'll be assessing daily penalties until compliance." "Compliance with what?" "Fraud," he shot back. Her smile didn't move. "Watch your tone. Randall doesn't appreciate hostility toward community leadership." It hit Nathan like cold rain. She had the deputy, the inspector, maybe half the town. He could fight with anger, or he could fight with proof. He took a slow breath. "Then I guess we'll let a judge decide." Pamela's grin faltered for the first time. That night Nathan called Desmond. "Bring your drone," he said. "If they're doing illegal construction or inspections, we're catching it on camera." The war for Haven Oaks had officially begun. By week 3, Nathan's motel room looked like an FBI field office. Every wall was plastered with printouts. Deed copies, HOA filings, county zoning maps. The drone footage Desmond captured showed more than illegal construction. It exposed a full pattern of abuse. Pamela's crews were adding extensions to multiple homes across the Ridge, all stamped HOA approved, all without county permits. When Nathan zoomed in on the footage, one name kept reappearing on the truck's invoices: Sutherland Contracting, owned by none other than Deputy Randall Hooper's cousin. It wasn't just a homeowners association anymore. It was an organized racket, and Nathan had just walked into the middle of it. Beverly reviewed everything with quiet fury. "These aren't violations, Nathan. This is fraud. Pamela's using her HOA to funnel county projects to her family's companies." She started typing up complaints on 3 different fronts: State Real Estate Commission, conflict of interest by an HOA president profiting from board contracts, County Ethics Office, misuse of public position by Deputy Hooper, State Attorney General, request for a formal fraud investigation. Beverly looked over her glasses. "It's about to get loud. You ready for that?" Nathan nodded. "I've been quiet long enough." The next blow came fast. His bank called, freezing his credit line. A complaint had been filed accusing him of forging purchase documents for the cabin. Pending investigation, he couldn't touch a cent. Pamela had weaponized bureaucracy. She wasn't just trying to steal his property. She was trying to choke him financially until he crawled away. Nathan stared at his reflection in the motel mirror. Sleepless eyes, stubble, exhaustion, but behind it, resolve hard as steel. "They picked the wrong guy," he muttered. That night, he got a call from Desmond. "Brother, I dug deeper. The county's building permit database? Half the HOA construction approvals are missing inspection records. Randall signed off on them personally." Nathan felt a grin creep in despite the chaos. "Good, let's make that public." 2 days later, a thick envelope slid under his motel door. No return address. Inside were photocopies of county meeting minutes, showing that Pamela had forged a community vote 2 years prior to annex his parcel. The signature beside his property's old owner was fake, even spelled wrong. Nathan drove straight to Beverly's office, threw the papers on her desk. She stared at them for a long moment, then smiled slowly. "Well," she said, "looks like we just found the crack in the wall." The morning after Beverly filed the fraud complaints, Nathan woke to a storm he didn't see coming. His phone was blowing up. Texts, missed calls, dozens of notifications. When he opened Facebook, his stomach clenched. A post from the Haven Oaks HOA page had gone viral in the local community group. "Beware of out-of-state buyer targeting local families." It claimed Nathan had falsified his deed, threatened board members, and endangered children by tampering with utilities. There was even a blurry photo of him outside his truck, captioned, "Aggressive behavior caught on camera." The comment section was a wildfire. "Typical outsider. People like him ruin neighborhoods." One comment read, "Maybe he needs a little mountain justice." Pamela had turned the entire town against him overnight. Beverly paced her office, phone to her ear, furious. "They've crossed the line, Nathan. That's defamation." "Can we stop it?" he asked. "Not fast enough. But we can outsmart them." Her plan was bold: go public first. She called in a friend from the Charleston Herald, investigative journalist Mara Chen, who'd exposed small-town corruption before. Mara met Nathan at the diner that afternoon. Camera ready, notebook open. "Tell me everything," she said. Nathan recounted every fine, every threat, every shady signature. By the end, Mara's expression was stone. "They've been running this scam for years," she said quietly. "You're just the first to fight back." But Pamela wasn't finished. That evening, Nathan found a folded paper tucked under his truck's wiper. Temporary restraining order. Pamela claimed Nathan had stalked her by driving past the HOA clubhouse, which sat on the only road leading to his property. The local judge, one of Pamela's golf buddies, had signed it. Nathan couldn't come within 500 feet of his own home. When Beverly read it, she actually laughed. The bitter kind. "They're desperate," she said. "But good. Desperation makes mistakes." 2 days later, the local news aired a story titled, "HOA Protects Community from Fraudulent Buyer." Pamela stood on screen, crocodile tears glistening. "This man tried to steal generational land," she sobbed. "We're just defending our families." The comments exploded again. Nathan's name was mud, until Mara published her article the next morning. Corruption in Haven Oaks. HOA president accused of forgery and nepotism. It included photos of Randall's fake inspections, drone footage and screenshots of Pamela's bogus documents. By sundown, the narrative flipped. Locals started whispering. Maybe Nathan wasn't the villain. Maybe he was the guy brave enough to stand up to one. By the time the court hearing rolled around, Haven Oaks was a powder keg. Pamela's HOA loyalists whispered about outsiders ruining the community, while Nathan's quiet determination had started winning. Sympathy from neighbors who'd suffered under the same iron rule. Beverly walked into the courtroom with her usual calm, messy bun, coffee cup, and a folder so thick it could stop a bullet. Pamela arrived with her husband Randall and a fresh lawyer who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. The judge, thankfully, wasn't one of Pamela's friends this time. A visiting circuit judge with a reputation for cutting through small-town nonsense. "Mr. Cole," he said, flipping through documents, "your evidence shows consistent forgery of records and unauthorized annexation of property into an HOA boundary." He turned to Pamela. "Ms. Grant, would you care to explain why your name appears on falsified deeds?" Pamela's voice cracked. "Those were administrative errors." "Errors don't replicate for 6 years," the judge snapped, "and certainly not with your signature on all of them." Beverly slid one last piece of paper across the bench. A forensic report showing the original property signatures had been digitally copied and pasted. Silence filled the room. Then the gavel came down. HOA annexation nullified. All lines void. Property ownership confirmed to Nathan Cole. A second order followed moments later. Investigation into Haven Oaks HOA initiated by State Attorney General. Pamela's mouth fell open. Randall muttered something under his breath, and the judge didn't miss it. "Mr. Grant," he said, eyes narrowing, "you might want to call your lawyer. Forgery and fraudulent filing carry real prison time." 2 hours later, chaos erupted at the property. The state investigators arrived to enforce the ruling, escorted by sheriff's deputies who weren't in Randall's pocket this time. Mara, the journalist, stood by with her camera, documenting everything. Pamela tried to block the gate, screaming, "You can't take my home!" One officer replied calmly, "Ma'am, this isn't your home. It never was." Inside the cabin, investigators found what Nathan had long suspected: hidden boxes of stolen HOA documents, property tax receipts belonging to other families, even cash envelopes labeled inspection fees. When they opened the shed out back, the smell of chemicals hit them hard. 5 large drums of motor oil, illegally stored, each labeled with Randall's contracting company. Environmental crime, caught red-handed. Pamela's lawyer whispered, "Don't say a word." Too late. The state police had already called for backup. Pamela was cuffed on the spot for fraud and obstruction. Randall followed, face red, spitting curses as cameras flashed. Nathan stood in silence, watching as the same people who'd threatened him were now being escorted off his land in handcuffs. Mara turned to him, microphone in hand. "You did it, Mr. Cole. What are you feeling right now?" He stared at the cabin. The roof still half-fixed, windows broken, deck charred from their bonfire nights. "Relieved," he said quietly, "and tired." Then, after a pause, "But this isn't about me anymore. It's about everyone they bullied." The week after the arrests, the mountain ridge felt different, quieter, cleaner. For the first time in months, the wind didn't sound like trouble. Nathan walked through his cabin slowly, boots crunching over shattered glass and splintered wood. The place was a wreck. Graffiti on the walls, wiring ripped out, plumbing smashed. But it was his. Every scar told a story of what he'd survived. Desmond and his crew arrived that weekend, hauling lumber and tools. "We're rebuilding it right," Desmond said, slapping Nathan's shoulder. "No board, no bylaws, just you and the mountain." It took weeks of sweat, nights by lantern light, and endless cups of diner coffee. But by spring, the cabin stood tall again, stronger than before. Fresh cedar siding, polished windows, new porch railing overlooking the valley. The same mountain sunrise Helen once dreamed about now painted his rebuilt home gold every morning. Mara's expose hit the front page of every major paper in the state. Choe president and county officials charged in widespread property fraud scheme. The fallout was massive. 6 county employees were suspended. Randall's company was blacklisted. Pamela lost her real estate license permanently. 3 years, probation and restitution payments to every homeowner she'd extorted. The state legislature even passed what locals now called the Cole Act, limiting HOA power and requiring outside oversight for board finances. What started as one man's nightmare had turned into reform. Nathan could have stopped there, rebuilt, moved on, but he didn't. He and Beverly launched a volunteer project called Property Shield, offering free legal advice to homeowners facing corrupt associations. Within 6 months, they'd helped over 100 families. He turned part of his cabin into a workshop for weekend clinics. Folding tables, coffee pots, stacks of flyers labeled, "Know Your Rights." "Don't be silenced." Desmond grinned when he saw the crowd one Saturday morning. "You realize you started a movement, right?" Nathan smiled. "No, I just refused to back down." That fall, he hosted the first-ever Haven Ridge Community BBQ. Neighbors who once avoided him showed up with casseroles and handshakes. Kids ran across the lawn. Veterans from nearby towns helped set up tents, and Beverly gave a speech under the new porch lights. She ended it simply. "This man reminded us what community actually means. Standing up when it's easier to stay quiet." As dusk fell, Nathan stepped onto the porch, looking out at the forest glowing in the last light. The cabin stood proud, smoke curling from the chimney, laughter echoing across the ridge. He whispered to the night, "We did it, Helen." Then he smiled, watching the stars flicker above the mountains. For the first time in a long time, home felt like peace, not a battlefield. So here's the deal. If you've ever been bullied by an HOA, cheated by officials, or silenced by red tape, don't walk away. Because when one person stands up, it gives everyone else the courage to fight back.